Thank you, first of all, for your participation and your presence here today. We really appreciate your participation. As Ibu Ut said, 2 big KSI events in Yogyakarta this week, so we're keeping you busy here. But it seems the center of power in Indonesia has shifted from Jakarta to the Solo Jogja corridor for now. I wanted particularly to thank Bapak Mezdin from Bapanas, who is our partner in KSI, and Ibu Uut, who has just spoken, who is hosting us here today. We appreciate your support. And our resource people from Menristek Dikti, from AIPI, and from Dewan Pendidikan Tinggi. Thank you very much for supporting us in this work. And of course, our university partners who have followed several workshops already to reach this point. And finally, I'd like to also thank the committee from both KSI and UGM who have organized today. It has been a major piece of work to bring everybody together. And we're delighted to have input beyond our core group because we've reached a point where we think we need additional input so that we can move to the next stage. The Knowledge Sector Initiative is especially concerned with the influence of research on public policy. For those of you who don't know KSI, KSI is a partnership between the governments of Indonesia and Australia to strengthen the use of evidence in public policy. And we have 3 broad themes that guide our work. The first is income inequality, which is high and rising, as in many other countries. Regional disparities, which is a critical issue for effective development, especially given the diversity of Indonesia. And finally, human development, which is the true role of the university in any country. And the objective that we have here today, and I think Pak Yodi will speak more to that, is to come up with a joint mechanism between KSI and our university partners to commission a diagnostic study on the university barriers to research. And the goal is to identify opportunities and the ways to lessen those barriers and to improve the opportunities for research to contribute to public policy. And I want to say a little bit about why we think that's particularly important. First of all, in many countries that have overcome and surpassed the middle income track, we see a much stronger focus on research than we do in Indonesia as a whole, both on policy research and on basic research. Indonesia is lagging behind many of its Southeast Asian colleagues quite significantly in a number of ways. And these are outlined in the background paper you have from Yanuar Nugroho and some of our colleagues at KSI. The money spent on research is very, very low in Indonesia. It's less than 0.1%. It really needs a 10 to 12 times growth to reach a comparable level with other countries in the region and around the world. The level of scientific publication is also very, very low out of the universities and researchers in Indonesia compared to most other countries. I heard Ibu Mari Pangestu speak recently and say that she is still among the top 10 published economists in Indonesia, and she has not published for many years because she's been busy as a minister. And this she sees, and I agree, as a major problem, that there should be new publication, new economists coming up and publishing. As the paper notes, the issue of patents is better. There's a better number of patents. However, many of the patents that are registered in Indonesia are registered by international companies rather than by Indonesian companies and researchers. In terms of universities, Indonesia, in spite of being the 4th largest population in the world, has no universities yet in the top 100. And I think only 1 in the top 400 or 500 universities in the world. So there's much work to be done in this area. There are challenges, as we see in the paper, in terms of the legislation and regulation that support the use of research and promote research. And finally, one of the issues that comes up strongly is the importance of really thinking about the culture in the university and how it can much more strongly promote research. The second point I wanted to make is we believe that policy research is an essential component to strong and effective public policy. There is public policy research underway in Indonesia, on Indonesia and about Indonesia. But a lot of it is done under the aegis of multilateral and bilateral institutions. And as so long as that research is being driven by those institutions, Indonesia is to some extent held hostage to the interests of those agencies, and make no mistake, they do have agendas and they do have special interests. This is normal that they would have their interests, but in my view is not really acceptable that that is a major driver of policy research in Indonesia. But we cannot change how the multilateral and bilateral institutions work. I think it has to be changed here with national leadership and national priority on developing strong Indonesian policy research centers. So strong policy research by and with Indonesian policy research centers is essential. And it's the universities that train those researchers. Without strong training of researchers in Indonesian universities, there's an inadequate supply of researchers to work in policy research institutes. So that's why we think that this area is particularly important, to strengthen the universities and their capacities to support and provide strong researchers to policy research institutes across the country, not only in Jakarta. Some of the barriers are external, the financing of research, the procurement legislation as two examples. But others are in the control of the university, and there are things that can be addressed without changes in legislation. We need to work on both sides at the same time, but to think about the universities, these relate to the culture of the university. The culture promotes and puts priority on teaching over the other parts of the Tridharma, over research and service. Teaching takes priority and takes precedence in terms of people's time and effort. In one way, the universities could, for example, designate themselves professors of research and professors of practice, not only professors of teaching. Right now, the other considerations come out of LIPI and other institutions. This could be done within the universities themselves to demonstrate a commitment to research as a priority for the university. I wanted to make one additional point about the university role that we didn't talk about in the paper or very much yet in the focus group. But that is, with our new focus on regional disparity within KSI, we're reminded that subnational universities have a key role to play in provincial and local support to policymaking. And it's a role they can focus on much better than the central universities or the national universities in Jakarta and others in Java, including Yogyakarta. And if we begin to think of universities primarily in terms of being national universities or subnational rather than public or private or religious universities, it gives a different perspective on what's important in terms of building support and capacity within national universities and subnational universities. National universities could be playing roles as mentors, and there could be then some harmonization of policies and linkages between national universities and the subnational universities. And the subnationals universities are going to be much more effective and capable in terms of the local issues that are going to be different in Aceh or in Papua or anywhere in between. Right now, what we're looking for is diverse perspectives of stakeholders in the development of research in the universities to enrich the diagnostic study, including the involvement of some policymakers. Because with government engagement in the process, we hope the study results can contribute positively to policymaking in Indonesia. My final point is that problems encountered in the development of research in the university can't be solved by one university alone. So there needs to be work across the university sector to address this issue. And that's not a normal pattern for universities. Professors are individuals. Professors are the best in their field. Universities are the best. Each one is its own. Getting them to work together, I think, is a challenge, but I think what we have here is quite unique because we have 4 universities that are working together on this problem and hoping over time to bring additional universities to address this question. And we hope to draw others in, including at the subnational level, because if we're going to talk about regional disparities, we must do that with people who are from the regions and in the regions, not only at a national level. So I'm looking very much forward to the discussions today, to your inputs, and to some resolution to move forward into a diagnostic to really address some of these barriers, not only describe them, but also to see some change that happens. changes that can happen within the university and changes that can happen in terms of legislation. I think that the universities play a critical role in building the human capital for policy research institutes to contribute in meaningful ways to building a knowledge economy in Indonesia, to build a strong, sustainable economy, and to claim its rightful place in the region. Thank you.